going live. Page just to everybody, welcome to Asian Queens in Animation's first workshop. Today we have our break into the animation industry, a beginner starter pack, and we've got all these amazing creatives here, and we're so excited for today. But I think first we'd like to know where you guys are calling from. And we're all in different places. I'm in Savannah, and
I'm in San Francisco.
Yeah, we've got a couple East Coast, West Coast, some Central.
Yep, Texas.
Yeah. LA, yay.
I think Lexi saw someone in the chat from Colombia.
Ooh,
So
yeah,
we have
so
people
cool.
all over.
Also
Colombia. And we've got India, we've got Florida, we've got the UK, we got MIC.
Some Bay Area people.
We got Vietnam.
Ooh, yes.
We've got, oh my God, we got Chicago.
Yeah, thank you for waking up and spending Sunday with us.
We don't know if it's like afternoon, night, early morning, but thank you for coming. We hope that today's workshop is going to be like a great help. I know that me personally, I've learned a lot from all of these amazing people, and hopefully you guys are too. So you're gonna leave here a new person. So awesome. Do you guys have a bit longer to see where everyone's from, and then we can get started?
Sure, I can screen share.
So yeah, I'll pass them.
Awesome. Well, hi everyone and good morning. Happy Sunday. Thank you for joining us for Asian Queens in Animation's first workshop series. We were all honestly so blown away by how many people signed up today. We honestly, thought we'd be talking to 40 people, but we were really overwhelmed with like 300 signups. So we're so happy you're here with us. Today is part one of a 3-part series, which we'll be continuing next week and the following week. So hope to see you there for those. So today's session of our Production Power Up series, Into the Production Verse, is titled Break into the Animation Industry, a Beginner Starter Pack. And we will be sharing how we broke into the world of animation, sharing our own timeline and personal failures and successes. Today's talk is separated into 3 chapters. The first book being where to begin, like where to start. The second, how to initiate and connect with others through informal networking and meet and greets. And finally, we'll be going over the general application process. And as a group, when we were developing this series, our target audience in mind was for students or young professionals who might not know much about the animation industry or, finding a job. So we really hope this is a helpful launching pad. And we also encourage you to feel free to screen grab any slides for your own reference, because we'll be sharing some email templates, for example, of thank you emails. So first off, we do want to preface that this talk is not indicative of Bento Box, Lucasfilm, Netflix, or NBC's Universal's culture, workflow, etc. And let's kick it off with an intro from Lexi.
Thank you, Joshua. I'm Lexi. I go by she, her pronouns, and I used to have an Australian accent. Also, that's pretty true, but my background actually started in dance, music, and fine arts. But then as soon as I saw How to Train Your Dragon, everything changed for me. So I started animating on my own, just kind of wandering around live action until I got my first internship on Miraculous Ladybug. So from there, I went on to Cartoon Network and Illumination, and now I'm at Netflix. I'm gonna hand it off to Joshua.
Awesome, thanks, Lexi. Hi, everyone. I'm Joshua. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm currently a production assistant at Lucasfilm Animation. For me, I've always loved storytelling and wanted to just find a niche where I belong, whether that was in development or recruiting. And in college, I actually studied psychology and gender studies. So part of my journey, I read a book called Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull, and he described when you have two hills of interest, and for me that was, psychology or animation, you shouldn't really go in between them. You should choose one and give it your all, and if it doesn't work out, you can turn around and climb your next hill. So I decided, after college graduation, I'm going to commit, 110% to a creative career, see if it works out. So I did the Disney College program after graduation, and it did take me 2 years to break in, where I got my first chance at Universal Animation on the Curious George film, and now I'm currently at Lucasfilm. So part of my story was definitely a lot of no struggle and resilience, but I hope that I can share, how you can break in even without internship experience. So I'm gonna popcorn it off to Olivia.
Hi, I'm Olivia. I go by she, her pronouns. I first discovered I've always loved animation since I could like watch animation. But I never really considered it as a career path until my freshman year of college when I saw Moana. And I just love that movie so much. And it was around that time of your life where you're trying to figure out what you want to do, what you want to study. And so I don't know, something hit me when I was watching the credits of Moana that I was like, all these people worked on this movie as their job. And that's when I started looking into possible careers in animation. From there, I was able to do a couple internships at Illumination and Skydance Animation before graduating and landing my first PA gig in the industry, which I'm now a design production assistant at Bento Box, and I'm working on a new show called The Great North. Popcorn to Brandon.
Oh, you're muted.
Hi, y'all. My name is Brandon. I go by he, him, his. I'm a native Angelino, and I actually grew up in Burbank, California. Growing up, I remember being really inspired by movies like Shrek, Beauty and the Beast, and Spirited Away, and knew that I wanted to work in entertainment because these movies, brought my family together. So I wanted to kind of replicate that feeling to everyone. As I got older, I was, once again inspired by like features like Tangled, Inside Out, Spider-Verse, which really inspired me to like truly settle down and decide like animation production or development is like where I belong. I was so lucky to intern at Illumination and Cartoon Network as well. But my first job was actually as a talent coordinator at the Walt Disney Studios. But currently, I moved back to the creative side and I'm currently PA at Universal Animation and soon to be a director's assistant at Netflix Animation.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for sharing your intros. Just fun fact, we all actually met virtually, during 2020. So we've never met in person, but I think it goes to show, how we encourage all of you to make your own community of Asian Queens or Animations. It's been really nice that we've been able to support each other through the job process and advice. So we hope you can build that community with each other. And I think Monsi should be sharing a contact form on Airtable so you guys can connect. So briefly, we just wanted to share just a graphic, like it does seem like we've had some success, but behind the scenes, there was a lot of tumultuousness and a roller coaster journey, just to see, how many applications we've submitted, how, that led to even less interviews, and then obviously even just one offer most of the time. Sadly, this graphic doesn't show the timeline of the application process. So like for me, it took 2 years after graduation, but maybe for some like Lexi, it can just take a few months. But hopefully this puts into perspective, if you really want this, you got to keep going. Part of the process, of course, is getting used to rejection and hearing no a lot, but it will be worth it in the end. So first, we do want to just dive right in and talk about how to pivot into animation. When we saw all the signups, we were really impressed by how many students and young professionals there were, even people who just wanted to pivot into animation. So we wanted to share, how you can do that, since a lot of us came from untraditional backgrounds like For me, I studied psychology and gender studies. Olivia had an Asian American studies background. Brandon studied sociology, while Lexi did study film and television. And, we all got our chance at different times, some out of college, some a couple years out of college. So there really is no rush. I know it's easy to, I think, compare yourself to others, but you have to kind of trust in your own journey. And a helpful tip that some of us used was giving yourself a timeline for reassessment. So, will you try this for 1 year? Will you try this for 2 years? That way, if you can have a reevaluation point on your goals if you decide, this is something you want to stop pursuing. But we definitely encourage you to keep going. So first off, we wanted to just share how to get started if you just know nothing about the animation industry, but have been interested, like how Olivia saw Moana and she thought, like how do I get involved and be a part of this great film? So first, we wanted to suggest the obvious of doing company research. There are websites for a lot of different studios like Netflix or Pixar. They have a lot of great frequently asked questions sections of their website that really go over, some of their basic culture principles, as well as just sharing, the projects they've worked on, so you can kind of see the breadth of what they do. We also will be sharing, a list of resources at the end of this talk. So feel free to write this down now, or we'll send out links later. There's a great website Lexi recommends called thinkinganimation.com, which shows a lot of different animation studios out there besides maybe the ones you've heard of. Because it's actually great if you can maybe start at a smaller studio where you actually get to wear many hats a lot of the time. There's also a really awesome giant G Sheet or Google Sheet that this animator has been updating very frequently with different animation job postings. So that's also a great way to keep track of different internships or PA jobs that come available. And we also recommend looking at the Animation Guild website. They're also called TAG. And they're a union that supports artists mostly, but it's a great way to see minimum wages that are posted, as well as find out your rights in the animation industry. Secondly, our personal favorite is to watch behind the scenes featurettes. In past Asian Queens talks, I personally really resonate with a lot of the panelists who've come because they said they watch a lot of DVD featurettes, about like Star Wars or Jurassic Park, things that, they're like, wow, like this is how it was made. And recently there's been a lot of great ones that have come out for the animation industry. So on Disney Plus, for example, there's Into the Unknown, making a Frozen 2. On YouTube, you could also look up one called Imagining Zootopia. And there's also one by Pixar called Inside Pixar. And these are a great resource that kind of like pulls the curtain, reveals the curtain and what's going on behind the scenes, just to kind of give you a sneak peek of what a day-to-day is like for a production assistant or creating an animated project. Thirdly, we recommend, following trade publications and news outlets. This is just a way for you to stay in touch with animation trends and what's going on in the animation industry. That way, later on, we will be sharing how you can have informational interviews, and you could bring up, an article you just read, like, oh, I just saw this is a really popular new trend. We do recommend, though, just use your own judgment on these news outlets. Sometimes it's really personal opinion, but still a great resource to kind of get started. Fourth, we do recommend conferences, and these examples include CTN Animation Expo, Lightbox Expo, SIGGRAPH. Normally they do happen in person, but recently it's been great that they've been able to happen for free and online. And they often record the talks and post them later if you couldn't make it. So there's also been great talks through Asian Queens YouTube that you're on now. Don't forget to subscribe. Also, Women in Animation Bay Area and Rise Up Animation. They've also had great talks that usually are recorded and saved later if you couldn't make it. And normally these conferences are great in person because not only do they have these panels in person for you to just kind of learn the behind the scenes on like how they made, a recent film that came out, but you can also meet with recruiters and people at their large tents where you can have a lot of informal networking of people in the same boat as you or people currently in the industry, and you never know what could happen. And then fifth, we do recommend finding online communities. I think, last year, there was a big advent of Discord, and we will be sharing invite links in the email, or you can DM us on our Instagram for the Women in Animation Mentee Discord created by Lexi and her team. And also there's an Animations Discord as well. And this is a great way to meet fellow people that you identify with, whether you're Asian or non-binary women. And it's a great way to share resources and meet others, so you can also make your own Animations cohort. And lastly, we really loved Olivia's advice. So you know how she shared that at the end of Moana, she would stay to the credits and see, all the awesome people that came together to make this heartwarming project. So next time you watch maybe your favorite animated show or feature, feel free to just stay at the credits and see all the different types of people that worked on it. You do get a sense of the whole production pipeline. So maybe you didn't know there was a department for research and development, for example. And then you can follow those people on LinkedIn or Instagram, see their career journey. And if someone really connects with you, feel free to reach out to them and hear their story, which kicks it off to Olivia to teach us how you can reach out to people.
Okay, reaching out to peeps. So you've done your research that Joshua just talked about. Now what? You guys have probably heard many times people say this industry is all about connections. It's all about who you know. Do not be intimidated by that at all. That does not by any means mean that you cannot break into this industry if you don't already know a bunch of people or have all these connections. It just means that you need to start putting yourself out there and making these new connections. And two great ways to do that is through LinkedIn and email. Obviously, if you have a person's email already, feel free to reach out to them through email. And we'll go over the etiquette for that more later. But if you don't have their email, LinkedIn is also a great way to message people who maybe you haven't met before extensively. So don't be shy. Here's some reasons you might want to reach out to someone. One, to let them know you admire their work. I've done that before with, I don't know if you guys have heard of Rise Up Animation, an organization that came up recently. But they have things called mentee spotlights where they spotlight one of their mentees in their program. And I've just sent a quick DM once in a while if I've seen a mentee that their answers to their questions really resonated with me, or maybe I really liked their portfolio work that was displayed in their spotlight. And people are always really appreciative of that. And that's a really great way to start making friends in the industry and kind of grow up together. Another reason you might reach out to someone is to ask for their advice. I've done this with people who maybe I've watched in a panel and I wanted to hear more about their advice on how to get where they are. Also, people who I've met at internships, or you can also do this with people you've met at stuff like CTN or Lightbox, like Joshua was mentioning. Another reason you can reach out to someone is to ask for resume feedback. I wouldn't do this unless it's someone that you've been in contact with before or a recruiter. And people who work in recruiting will obviously give the best resume feedback because they're the ones looking at the most resumes. Another reason you can reach out to someone is to learn more about their job or just have a quick coffee chat. Maybe if you saw someone in the credits, like I was saying, and you want to learn more about like, what is a story coordinator? What do they do? And you can find them on LinkedIn or find their email and just reach out, and maybe they'll be willing to talk more about what they do, give you their little day-to-day rundown. Okay, so when you're first reaching out to someone and you don't know like how they're going to respond, what the etiquette should be, this is cold email etiquette or cold LinkedIn message etiquette. So if you're connecting with them on LinkedIn, always add an intro note so that they know who you are. If they would have no idea who you are or wouldn't remember you or don't know why you're connecting, they're a lot less likely to accept the connection or respond. So if you add a little message saying like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but we met at CTN and I just wanted to connect, and maybe like if you have a few if you have like a 30-minute window somewhere, maybe we could set up a little chat. So easy nowadays since everything's on Zoom. People don't even need to like get in their car and go somewhere. So make it easy for them to figure out what you're asking to. Like, don't send some vague message. If you want some of their time and you want to talk to them or ask them questions about their job, say that in the message or the email. When you're writing an email, it's also helpful. We'll go over this more later, but helpful to use white space to break up the email, because no one really wants to read like a large body of text and pick out the information. Like, what is this person really emailing me for? So it's helpful to break it up into smaller paragraphs to make it obvious, like why you're reaching out. Make it easy for them to say yes or no, and keep it short and sweet. There's no need to explain how you got their contact information. This was something that I struggled with before, where I felt so awkward, like they're gonna wonder how I got their email. But like, especially for recruiters, they know that their email is floating out there. You don't need to waste up more space in the body of the email to just say like, by the way, like this is how I found your email. Like, that's kind of awkward. And then if you saw them like speak on a panel, if you saw them at CTN, if you saw them in the credits, just like mention in the email or the message, like how you found them, like why you're reaching out to them specifically. And that'll kind of create a little connection between you. Also mention maybe something they said that resonated with you, and that's why you wanted to reach out to maybe them versus everyone on the panel. And then make the subject line something that will be easy for them to find or remember in their inbox. So we'll go over that more right now. I know that writing emails is so, like, it takes me an hour to write like a 1-paragraph email. Probably a lot of you can relate to that. So we're going to help you out a little bit here and give you some examples of subject lines and things to write in the body of your email when you're reaching out to people. So you could write hello. That's a pretty basic one. If you're emailing a recruiter because you maybe applied to a job at a studio and you want to let them know that you applied, you can write future opportunities at studio name. That makes it super clear to them that you want to work there, which is a good thing for recruiters because they're looking for people who want to work at their studio. If you're looking for a coffee chat, you can say time to chat, animation industry question. If you're looking for resume advice, just write resume advice. And then this was a really helpful tip from Lexi, which is that if it's someone who you maybe met at a specific place, or you connected with them on LinkedIn, messaged them on LinkedIn, and now you're emailing them, make it really obvious in the subject who you are and how they know you. So if I met Lexi at USC, then connected with her on LinkedIn and said, can I get your email so we can set up a coffee chat? I could write Olivia Stark, my name, USC LinkedIn, to make it clear that's who I am. Now I'm in your email inbox. And then when you're writing the body of the email, if you're reaching out to like a recruiter or someone who you want to learn more about the studio they work at, express your interest in that company and why specifically that place. Don't just say like, I like Walt Disney Animation Studios because I just love animation, because that's not specific to Disney, right? Maybe like, what's your favorite movie from their studio? Why? What's your favorite series? Something that's kind of personal to that place. You can also write something unique about who you are. That kind of helps you stand out a little more, not just like a random fun fact, but leave it in there somehow. Things you're curious to learn more about, especially if you're asking for kind of an informational, that'll make it easier for them if they know kind of like what you're looking to learn more about. You can also mention something that interested you lately in the industry. I know I do this a lot with people who I'm reaching back out to after a while. Like my old boss, she and I both loved the comedian Ali Wong. So whenever I'm kind of reconnecting with her, I'll always write something like, hey, are you going to catch Ali Wong's new tour when she comes back to LA? Stuff like that. And it just makes it seem more friendly and personable. Next slide. Okay, so now we'll go over an example of a cold email. If you're reaching out to someone for the first time, this is how I would write the email to, let's say, Brandon. And feel free to screenshot this so you can use it as a template in the future. But say that I saw Brandon talk at a talk for Asian Queens in Animation. So I wanted to reach out to maybe ask for an informational and learn more about him. I'll say, hi, Brandon. My name is Olivia Stark, and I'm a recent graduate of UCLA with a degree in Asian American Studies and minor in film and TV. So this first sentence is just like making it clear who I am. Then I say, I recently attended your virtual talk for AQIA, which I found so informative and helpful. So I wanted to reach out and introduce myself, as well as express interest in a future career in animation, and more specifically at Brandon's studio. So I highlighted this part in pink just because that's the part where you can kind of show like specifically why you're reaching out to them, what you saw them in that spoke to you. But then this middle paragraph is where you can get very specific. So if you're going to use this as a template, I would not copy and paste the middle paragraph, because that should be something where you write something very specific between what you're asking them for and making it clear why you're reaching out. So I wrote here, I really enjoyed hearing what you had to say about your experiences as a design PA. If you ever have any time, I would love to set up a virtual coffee chat to hear more about your journey to animation production, along with any advice you have for someone just starting out in animation. So that there is, if Brandon is really busy and skips over a bunch of emails, he can look at my email, just read the middle paragraph and know exactly what I want. And then I always just end it with some niceties. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I look forward to hearing from you. So it shows that you're a nice person, but also that you are expecting to hear back.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Olivia, for sharing with us how to do some networking and setting up those informational interviews. We're going to pass it off to Brandon because Olivia's email was so successful, and now she's going to have a coffee chat with Brandon. So take it away.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for your kind note, Olivia. So after receiving the reply from the person you just reached out to and they agreed, so let's have a coffee chat, right? Let's go over kind of some informational interview tips and like kind of basic networking skills, right? So first, let's go over some coffee chat etiquette. Either in person or virtual, always be mindful and respectful of the person's time. Keep in mind that they also have a full-time job and probably have a bunch of meetings before and after. So, you know, once you enter the Zoom or meet in person, I would say read the room. Make sure that not only are they comfortable, but also you're comfortable, right? Set the stage for like your own success. So come prepared with like at least 2 to 3 questions and like a couple topics like that you pull out of your pocket that like you're just really passionate about. It doesn't even need to be about, you know, animation. It could be about like maybe you love doing crochet or like you love like watching you know, The Mandalorian, right? So, you know, and another advice for, you know, coming up with some questions is like, if you can Google it, don't ask it, right? Because you want to have this conversation be as meaningful and a big learning experience as possible. Next. So before diving into navigating the conversation, I kind of want to note that informationals with recruiters work very similarly to coffee chats with other industry professionals. So here are kind of like a few things to think about when you reach out to recruiters. So recruiters actually want to talk to you. Their job is to fill a position with someone that's a right fit for the company or studio as soon as possible. Like, trust me, like as soon as possible. So you would actually be helping them if a job happens to be open and you know the stars align and you reached out at the perfect timing, right? When timing meets preparation. Recruiters are always on your side. They want to help you in every way possible and they want you to succeed. But remember, they are human beings too. Their inboxes also flood. So, you know, another advice I would give is in animation, every department plays like a key role in making a feature or TV series, from like artistic recruitment to creative development. to business affairs. So, you will always learn something new and helpful for your journey into landing a job in animation. And you can always, pivot wherever you feel like you're more interested in. Like it's more easier than you think. So reach out to people outside your discipline. Now let's get to navigating the conversation. First and foremost, be yourself. Like, as simple as that sounds, is actually really hard. But be yourself. You are your greatest asset. Express your passions and interests outside of animation and entertainment, like I mentioned before, and use your strengths, right? Here are a few tips to kind of ease any like anxiety, I guess. First ask yourself, how's the conversation going? Do you feel like you're learning something? Is the person answering your questions? Is the person involved, or are they just kind of giving you one sentence answers? Just know that it's totally okay if the conversation isn't going well. The point of the coffee chat is to expand your network and learn, right? You'll meet so many people throughout your journey, like so many, and know that you won't match with every single person you meet. So just keep going, keep pushing, keep networking, right? This might kind of sound a little harsh, but in the kindest way possible, remember that recruiters and industry professionals don't owe you anything, in a sense that like chat and connect like you're making a new friend, not someone that you'll use or like want something from. And people can tell, trust me. We're all human beings navigating through the world. So be kind and be truthful to yourself. So you finish your coffee chat. Now what? First thing I would do is draft and send a thank you email. No matter if the conversation went well or not, at the end of the day, that person did take the time to meet with you. And also it really shows that you're just an open-minded and great person to work with, and that you could work with anybody. And that's such a great asset to have. And I feel like every studio looks for that. If the coffee chat did go well, you should follow up or reconnect with that person once every quarter. So like I would say like 3 to 4 times a year, like kind of reach out and be like, hey, like, how are you doing? Or like maybe you saw an article that they got promoted or they got put on a new exciting show. It's always nice to like catch up once in a while, right? And one tip is to kind of keep all the communications in one email thread to prevent, flooding inboxes. But, it is what it is. Do whatever you feel like is most comfortable in terms of organization. So here's an example of a thank you email after a coffee chat. I just had a coffee chat with Lexi, right? So I would say, hi, Lexi, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to meet with me yesterday. And like Olivia said, using that wide space to your advantage and, separating what's important and what are niceties. So here's like the meat of the email, which is, I really enjoyed hearing what you had to say about your experiences as a development PA at Lexi Studios. Also, I can't believe we both watched Hamilton at the Penn Studios on the opening week. Glad to hear I met someone who nerds out over musicals as much as I do. So in the body paragraph, I would, include something that maybe you guys connected with, right? That's outside of animation. Like, it is true, Lexi and I really do love our musicals. So, like I said, you're trying to make a new friend. You're not trying to just network to use someone. So make it as personable as possible. So to continue, as discussed, I've attached my most current resume. I really appreciate your offer to share it with Joshua. This is really important because if they did offer you something during your one-on-one, like passing your resume to a recruiter or to their friend or to a manager, always remind them, right? And have it in writing. Have everything in writing. So I would say include this if it is brought up. If it's not brought up, please do not include it. And to end it off, I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I look forward to connecting again in the future. So you're opening a door for future, coffee chats and reconnects. Best, Brandon.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Brandon, for sharing how to navigate a meet and greet. So say Brandon, has now met with Lexi and they've had a relationship, back and forth for many months. And oh my goodness, the job is opening. Like, what is the navigation process of that? So I'm going to kick it off to Lexi to teach us.
Thank you, Joshua. So you've been fostering your connections, your friendships, and sending nice emails, and one day you get an email from a recruiter. But who are the players getting you a job? So the team is called Talent Acquisition, or the recruiting team, and they will be helping you through the interview process. So they're the ones that find the candidates, match into the jobs, and present them to the hiring teams. So they may or may not exist at some studios like Universal. The shows will do the hiring, but at Netflix, there will be a separate team. But just a reminder, they want to hire you. So here's how it'll go down. So first, there is going to be a phone screen. Most likely the sourcer will loop a coordinator into the email thread, and they will set up your meeting. So if you have any logistical questions, scheduling questions, or emergencies, ask the coordinator because they're here to help you. So make sure you reply all, make emails easy to read, and say thank you. They're going to help you get to the finish line. So when they set up a phone call, here's what happens. Sometimes recruiters will call you out of the blue and say, hey, can I talk to you about this job? Or you'll get an email saying, let's do a video interview. So it's going to be pre-recorded messages. So the goal of this conversation is to check if you're legit or not lying about your experience. So if you can do the job, if you care about the job, because why would I give a job to someone who doesn't really care about it over someone who does? So they're also checking to see if you fit with a certain team. So it's like a matching process, like a dating process. So before the meeting, have your resume in front of you. It is very important because they might ask things like, walk me through your resume. It's easy to have in front of you. And then they will ask you questions such as the ones on this slide. So we were asked these in the Illumination phone call and the Cartoon Network video call. So they just want to get to know you and your passions and talk about your hard skills during this time. During this time, be aware of your tone. So you might have to voice act a little bit and smile when you talk, because it sounds different when you sound angry. And hopefully they will find a team that wants to interview, and hopefully you'll get to go to the studio in person for an interview. So normally what happens is that you'll go to the studio, be early but not too early, but also make sure you're nice to everyone, including the front desk and security personnel, because I have heard stories about the security telling the hiring teams that this person is mean and the person doesn't get the job. So keep that in mind. Okay, so the coordinator will show you to the room, and they would have told you in advance who you're talking to and how many interviews you're having. But one thing you'll know for sure is the person you'll be talking to is your direct supervisor. And the format will go, tell me about yourself, getting to know you. Tell me about this experience. Why animation? Why do you want to work at this company? And then they'll switch to behavioral questions. So you can Google these online. I was at one interview and they brought a printout and asked me whichever questions they wanted on the 4 pages. So these questions include, when was the last time you handled a crisis and how did you handle it? And after that, possibly in the last 10 minutes, they'll ask you, is there anything you want to ask me? So this is your time to shine. Prepare at least 10 questions in advance. I usually do 20 just to be safe. But make sure they're really thoughtful questions, because if you can find them on Google, then what's the point of asking them to the people who actually work there? But if you run out of time, you might not have time to ask questions. So then ask them, who should you contact if you have any questions? Yeah, it's pretty simple from there. So what do they talk about in production interviews? They will focus on 5 things. You, why animation, why production, how you organize and prioritize, and how you handle diverse personalities. Basically, they want to see who you are on a day-to-day basis. But let's go back to those behavioral questions. So it stands for situation, task, action, result, and this stands for STAR problems. So this is how they figure out how you think and how you tell a story. So for me, I usually prep 10 experiences before going in. So for example, they might ask me, how did you fix a difficult problem on set? And I'll go, during my time on this stressful feature film, there was a driver who was taking out his anger on the crew, and he was about to come for my other friend, the other PA. So I stepped in front of him and I asked him what he needed, having a civil conversation to de-escalate the situation. We were able to establish a communicative relationship between the rest of the crew and production, and we did not have an incident like this for the rest of the shoot. So something like that, but put your own spin on it. And then this other thing that I talked about with my coordinator, he was saying, don't have canned answers. Like if you practice this in advance, it will seem a little awkward. So basically they want to see how much the candidate can turn the interview into a conversation. So just think of your people skills, practice them. But also, if you're worried about interviews, this is just another meeting in their life. So it should be the same for you. It's just meeting people and seeing if you'd like to work with them. Because, hey, it's a two-way street. You're also evaluating them. And if you're nervous, we're a little bit more flexible with professionalism. So you can be yourself no matter if you're calm or you have a lot of energy. And just remember to be your best self. We're all people here. Passing it back to Joshua.
Awesome. Thanks, Lexi. So we just wanted to share with you some, basic interview prep things that you could be doing right before. So first, like we shared about the research you should do, definitely understand the company and their goals by checking out their website, their FAQ, even like at least watching the minimum of one episode of a show they've done or a movie can really help, because most often they will ask, oh, have you seen our content, or what's your favorite show that, XYZ Studio has done. Definitely, like Lexi said, please be yourself, even in a professional environment. At the end of the day, these people you meet with, are the people that you'll be joking around with. They could be your future friends even. So definitely, like, you want to be your authentic self, because you wouldn't want to be fake and, not be happy in a team that you didn't really necessarily jive with. Third, we really recommend you warm up your body and voice. Like before this presentation, we sang some classic animated songs to warm up. I know Olivia's mentioned, before an interview, she would sing maybe like a song from Moana. So that can definitely help, or do some basic yoga stretches to get blood to your brain. Lexi does recommend having at least 10 experiences you can draw from quickly. So think about it, practice it in the mirror. It shouldn't sound scripted, but definitely when they ask you for a time that you've been organized or stressed and how do you handle it, you can easily come up with it rather than freeze. But it's also okay to say like, oh, can I have maybe 5 seconds or 30 seconds to think about that? So that's also totally normal. Definitely have a list of questions ready at the end. It does show that you are an engaged candidate and that you're really passionate, about, the job itself. I think a fun tip is actually to save the last question as a fun question. So it doesn't have to really be related to the job. It kind of shows, that you are also a fun person to work with. Definitely have, room temperature around you and warm water, but don't overhydrate. So you have to use the bathroom often. And definitely understand the position. So when recruiters and the hiring team create a job posting, they're really being targeted in the specific responsibilities they're putting. So we'll be covering this in the second workshop about how to match the language, but definitely I would save actually jobs that you want, even if you're not applying, or even higher level jobs, like say you want to become an executive producer someday. Just save those as you see them, because they do disappear when the position is filled. But that way you yourself are understanding what things you're aspiring to and what exactly a job is when the time does come for you to apply to be like an executive producer, for example. If you are doing a remote interview, definitely test your tech beforehand and make sure if you have housemates, that they're not all hogging up the Wi-Fi bandwidth. Have a nice background or even just a plain wall if it's not virtual. And we also recommend propping up your laptop or camera so it's eye level rather than like you looking down on someone or like you're looking up. Definitely eye level is best. And lastly, we do recommend you do some reflection on your own professional goals. A lot of times the hiring team will ask, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And it's definitely important to be honest. So say you wanted to use production as a way to pivot into an artistic role, you should definitely let the team know that that is your ultimate goal. Or, if you want to be a writer, definitely be clear with that. Next, going to pass off to Olivia to talk about what to wear during an interview.
Thank you, Joshua. And yes, I have been known to sing Moana on the way to interviews, show up with that Disney princess energy. So we're going to talk about what to wear for your interview. Dress professionally, but remember that animation is not very fancy. So you've probably heard the phrase, no such thing as too overdressed. Yes, there's such thing as too overdressed. Don't show up to an interview in the animation industry wearing a full suit and tie, full pantsuit. We were just joking about this like before we started the presentation about how I really want to get a green pantsuit, but that's just like not how people dress in this industry. But yeah, just kind of wear something comfortable. Usually to an interview, I would wear like maybe a nice blouse and nice like dark wash jeans. Sometimes I'll throw a blazer over it too. I love blazers, but that's not even necessary in animation, honestly. You don't want to show up to an interview and you're dressed just totally differently from everyone who works there, because when you are interviewing, they're also looking for a culture fit. They care that you are qualified for the job, but usually when you're interviewing, they already think you're qualified for the job and they're really just trying to get to know you. So wear something that's comfortable, and that really allows your personality to shine through, your personal style, but something that's not too distracting that they like would focus on that over your personality. Just let your personality shine through in the interview, basically. And then another thing I'll say is you never know what someone's pet peeve is. I've heard of someone in the industry who has a pet peeve about nails. So just make sure your nails are either like nicely manicured or just don't have any nail polish on at all. Don't have like chipped nails. For perfume or cologne, if you're gonna wear that, fine, but keep it like kind of simple and light. You don't want your smell to be what they remember. I think it all kind of just boils down to you want you to be what they remember. So don't distract them with any sort of weird clothing or anything. And then, of course, the most important thing is be comfortable, because that will allow you to kind of be yourself in the interview.
Awesome. And we just had some final reminders about the application process that, it really is just a conversation. I think interviews have a lot of stigma as kind of being intimidating, but at the end, like on the hiring team does want to see you in your most relaxed state, because if you're already brought into an interview, they kind of already think you can do the job. They're basically ultimately seeing if you are a culture fit, personality fit for the team. And it is a two-way street. So, like you may think like, oh, I have to do my best to prove myself to these people. Like I have to be on my A game. But if you are sensing and reading the room that these people seem really stressed, oh, these people don't align with my own values, then that's totally valid. And you can probably decide personally, like, oh, this is not a good job fit for me because it's like too demanding, or I don't really get along with these people. Definitely try to remind yourself what your passion is. Maybe the night before, watch your favorite animated project, because it will remind you and recharge you about why you want to do animation. And it really does come through, like people can read energy and see the smile you have and how your eyes light up. So definitely be genuine and remind yourself about why you care about animation. And ultimately, if it's not a fit, it's not a fit. Don't be too hard on yourself, about those. We'll go a little bit more about that later. And ultimately, they do want to hire you. So definitely show your best self and have confidence.
Yay, you're done with the interviews. Now what? Remember to say thanks by sending a good old thank you note and decompress. Really, like your friends, especially your friends in the industry that understand your struggles, are like your greatest allies. Like I remember calling Joshua and Olivia like after like multiple interviews and just being like, hey, like can I talk for 30 minutes? And it ends up being like a 2 hour long therapy, one-way therapy session for me. But that's why I'm saying like, your friends in the industry are your greatest allies, because they can really help you, through like the process and like help like alleviate like anxiety. And not make you think about, oh, how did I do like blah, 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 like 24/7. So after you send your thank you note, there's nothing you can really do at this point, but, be patient, as cheesy as this sounds, like manifest, because it really does work, and keep applying to other roles. Like, don't just have one dream studio and dream job, like dream bigger and diversify your tastes.
Okay, so say I just finished an interview with Joshua for a PA position. This is an example of a thank you note that I would send at the end. And you should always, always send a thank you note after any interview for anything. That's just kind of custom and what's expected. If you don't have the email of the person who interviewed you, which is often the case, usually, like Lexi talked about before, the interview will be with some kind of supervisor or executive. And it will be set up by like a recruiting coordinator. So you'll most likely just have the recruiting coordinator's email. You won't have the contact info yet for the people who interviewed you. In that case, just ask the recruiting coordinator about what is the best way to send thank you notes to each interviewer. So sometimes they'll say, oh, sure, here's their emails, and then you can send it to them individually. Or sometimes they'll say, oh, you know what, just send your thank yous to me and I'll make sure I pass it along to them. And that's totally fine too. But in any case, send the thank you notes. So this is my example of a thank you note. Hi, Joshua. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me yesterday. It was great getting to meet you and getting to learn more about the PA position and your department as a whole. So that first paragraph can just be kind of like one sentence, just saying like, yeah, I'm writing you to say thank you. And just a reminder, this is the role that I interviewed for. Then the middle paragraph is again, where you really like shine and show some specifics, show what you took away from the interview. So I wrote, I appreciate the way your department allows one to learn the animation pipeline from start to finish and provides the opportunity to work with series and features across the entire studio. So maybe that's something that Joshua and I talked about in our interview. And they told me like, oh, well, in this role, you'll be able to really understand the pipeline and you get to touch every project. That's something that people have said to me in interviews before. And it's good to kind of just repeat that in your thank you email to show that you were engaged and listening during the interview and you understand what the role entails. Then I wrote, I'm so inspired by the enthusiasm you show for the projects you have worked on, and Joshua's studio sounds like such an amazing place to begin my career in animation. So that just shows like, yes, you are still very interested, if not more interested in the position after the interview. Like the interview got you really excited for the potential to work at Joshua's studio. And then always end it with some niceties. Let me know if there's anything else I can provide. I hope you have an excellent weekend. And again, I look forward to hearing from you, showing you expect a response one way or another. And then lastly, don't forget to thank everyone who was part of the interview process. You'd be surprised how many people forget. So oftentimes if you're interviewing in like second or third round interviews, you will be interviewing with an entire team. So that will be multiple people. Even if just one person did most of the talking through that, you should send a thank you note to everyone who was present for the interview, because even if they didn't ask you very many questions, they did take time out of their day to meet with you and get to know you. And then also, it never hurts to send a thank you note to the person who helped schedule all these interviews, because that's a lot of work too. And they'll remember that you were grateful for that.
Awesome. Thank you for your thank you note, Olivia. So here are some reminders from all of us on this panel who have been through thousands of applications and hundreds of interviews. If you don't get this position, it's them, not you. Just like Fish, there are a lot of studios and teams in the entertainment scene. My favorite quote is, there can be 100 people in a room, but you only need one to believe in you, which is like 100% accurate. Next. Extra reminders. There are different ways to break into the animation industry. The industry is more flexible than you think, and every department is part of like a bigger machine. You can start somewhere else and transfer into your dream like role. You'd be surprised how many skills are like transferable between jobs. Another advice is don't be evil. It's a really simple thing that passes over our heads from time to time. We're all in this together. The animation industry is much smaller than you think. Also, like Lexi says, it can influence your interviews, right? So be kind, be nice. There are also so many examples within my own journey where kindness, friendliness, and mindfulness came a long way. Also, be proactive. Put your careers in your own hands and go above and beyond. Start making projects with other people or reach out to your friends and ask if they have a project you could help on. You can join student projects, indie projects, Kickstarters, or you could apply to fellowship programs through like VCA or Film Independent, and even host pitch parties, right? If you want to if you want to practice pitching a show with your friends. You can also volunteer for animation organizations, events, festivals, and award shows like the Annie Awards. You'll meet so many new people that might, last their lifetime. I will say this one last time because this is so important. Remember, the animation community is really, really small and people talk. So be kind.
So thank you everyone for coming and listening to us. Don't forget to follow AQIA on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook and all of that fun stuff. And keep an eye out for our next 2 production events. So we will be covering resumes and cover letters next week. And then the week after that, Olivia, Brandon, and Joshua are doing a production demo. So you're going to see what we do every single day, like breakdowns, reviews, all that fun stuff. So feel free to test what you've learned today and send us a LinkedIn note with a note. So if you're also looking for a community to join and you identify as an Asian community person, join Animations on Discord. You can DM the handle on Instagram and we will help you out. Then we are going to stick around if you guys have any questions, but otherwise have a good day. And thank you for joining AQIA for our first workshop. Yay!
Yay, thank you everybody. So yeah, we have a couple questions from our audience. So I'll get started. Let me know when you.
Let's go.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go.
So a couple of questions, like you've already sort of answered it, but just so you can reiterate for people. So the first question is, what is the best way to meet people in the industry?
Well, definitely join the Discord. I think that's a great way to meet people virtually during this time. But, like we said about watching your favorite project at the end of the credits, find the people that, you aspire to be in those roles and just reach out to them on LinkedIn with the tips we provided. That's just one example.
WIA is also hosting a lot of mixers and parties. So join WIA, join their events. And Children's Media Association also has a monthly Thursday Connect, so you can talk to people. But yeah, join Discord as well. People are on it all the time, and you can just talk to people 24/7. It can be done.
WIA stands for Women in Animation, by the way.
Awesome. And then we have our next question, which is, someone is curious about the works of production management and their relationship with the art department. And they wanted to ask, so there are artists who take part in production management. So does that require, can they still be in production without a management degree or experience?
Yeah, so I work right now in the design department of production management, which is kind of a bridge between the artists and production. So I'm talking to artists every day, talking to production crew every day. And I've actually seen a lot of people switch over. Actually, I think one of the PAs before me is now a storyboard revisionist on our show. So she actually switched over from production to art. But I think it's also really easy if you want to switch over from the art side to production as well. And whichever you start out in will get you where you want to be. Just whenever you land that first job, make sure you're clear to everyone there, like what your actual goals are for your career, where you want to be. If you want to be an artist and you're in production management, make sure you tell everyone that, and that'll be great because the people you're working with now are the people who hire the artists, and you're probably working with artists too, and you can learn from them along the way. Just kind of when you get in, be proactive, and as long as you're clear about what your goals are, you're already in. You'll make all the connections you need to get where you really want to be.
Great. So thank you. And our next question is it better to apply to any and all job openings and opportunities, or should you take your time to choose between companies and positions based on what you want or need?
Okay, so I'll answer this one. It really does depend on where you are on your career journey. I'll start from the very beginning, right? If you're trying to land that first internship, I would say honestly apply everywhere and anywhere, and to all job opportunities, just because internships are meant to, explore, like it's for you to explore yourself, right? Explore what you like, and the internship recruiters know that. So for internships, I would say apply to any job, any company that you feel like you're interested in. But once you start gaining that momentum, right, and you're like, gaining more internship experiences, one, naturally you kind of see yourself focusing on a department. So I would say at that point you would be more meticulous to and particular to where you should apply and what positions you want to be applying to. Just because if you apply to any and all jobs at that point, the recruiters are going to kind of be a little confused. Like I remember being a little confused when I see that from time to time. So my advice would be, be a little more specific once you gain more internship experience. And once you, start looking for like an assistant job, I would say, of course, you should apply to jobs that you feel like it's, your passion. So let's say you have only production internship experience, but you want to apply for development experience, that's fine. Just cater your resume to, the development job, right? But at the same time, don't apply to like development, post-production, production jobs, because most likely one recruiter is in charge of all of that. So they're going to feel like you are not focused at that point, right? They're like, oh, like, this person's just trying to find themselves again. Like, I don't know if it's going to be a good fit. So yeah, that's what I would say. If anyone wants to chime in, to continue this, go ahead. But that's what my advice would be.
I think I agree. When I did the Disney college program, a lot of the recruiters came to talk, and it's definitely not good to just apply willy-nilly to everything, because like you said, Brandon, it doesn't really show focus. They think like, what does this person actually want? So I do agree though to expand your net though, like don't just apply to Pixar or Disney animation. You'll be surprised, in the past, you've only hired like one production intern. So you can imagine the competition for one person to get that. So definitely apply to like Cartoon Network, DreamWorks, smaller studios.
No studio is a bad studio.
Yes, exactly.
100%.
Yeah, and to be respectful of your time, so we'll have 4 more minutes of questions. So the next question is, if you don't get an answer to a cold email, how long should you wait before following up, and what's the etiquette for the follow-up email?
Okay, I can talk about this because I didn't mention this in the presentation, but a lot of the time you will not get a response at all. And that is totally fine. Like, don't expect that you're going to get a response to every cold email you send. The whole point of sending these cold emails is that maybe someone will respond. And then in that off chance, you will kind of make this new connection, maybe get a new mentor, a new friend in the industry. But it's definitely not like, you should not expect to get responses from all of them. Like Brandon was saying earlier, these people are so busy, their inboxes are flooded. A lot of times they just don't have time to respond or send an email. If you do want to send a follow-up because it's something that's really important to you, or maybe it's because it was to a recruiter about a specific job, I would wait at least a week or two. And then I've heard people say you can just kind of respond, keep it in the same email chain. And you can just respond and say, hey, like, popping this up to the top of your inbox in case you missed it, like, would still love to chat if you have time. Don't like guilt them into talking to you, because that's not a good look for anyone. And don't just don't be offended or take it personally if they don't respond or if they don't have time. It's not because of you or because of anything that you've done. It's because, like I said, these people are just so busy, and most of them just realistically don't have time to respond to everyone's cold emails.
Yes, thank you. And we can hop on to our next question because I know we're cutting close to time. But if any of you need to leave, feel free to hop off. And if any of you want to stay to answer a couple more questions, then yeah, let me know. And then we have a couple of questions. So I'll just go to the next one, which is, what experiences other than internships can help strengthen your resume?
Okay, I got this one. So anything can be spun to get a PA job. So it doesn't matter if you're working on animated projects or you're doing a customer service job or volunteering, you can spin it. Like, it's possible. It just matters if you can get those admin skills in. Do you have those people skills? Like, those are the ones that really matter the most.
Yeah, we'll be
Awesome.
covering this in the second and third workshop, but like,
Have
for
5
example,
slides on it.
yeah, like after college, I worked at the Disneyland gift shops, and I remember talking to recruiters thinking like, like I really want to enter animation, but like this doesn't really seem relevant. And they told me no, like your experience working with difficult personalities at times, fast-paced environments is totally translatable. So just finding a way to sell yourself, in college, if you were a resident assistant, there's definitely ways to pivot into animation without having done animation or studied it.
Okay, great. And here's another question, which the person's asking, if your goal is a creative position, but you want to start out in production, should you structure your materials for production or creativity?
I can answer. I'd say structure your materials for whatever job you're applying to right now. So maybe in the future you want to work in creative, but you're applying to a PA position. PA positions really value like organization and teamwork. And so really highlight those experiences. It's okay if in the interview they ask like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? They often ask that question. It's okay if you say like, I really want to work more on like the creative side or the art side, but I'm really right now trying to get this foundational production experience in order to get there, which I think is really valuable. Like that's the experience I'm looking to get. But I would say definitely tailor your resume and cover letter to whatever the specific job you're applying to is. And I actually have like 4 or 5 different versions of my resume or cover letters based on different positions I'm applying to. It's okay to literally change it for every single position.
Okay, cool. Yes, definitely. And I guess, so one person asked a little fun question, which is, what is your favorite part of your job?
I guess I'll I'll chime in on this one, but I'm also a design PA at Universal Animation at the moment. My favorite part of the job is just, watching and learning about the creative process, right? Like how do they decide like how a line art is, right? Like how are we gonna design Curious George's outfit, right? Or how are we gonna design Annie the alpaca? Like I feel like that's so amazing to just listen and take notes from the director and creative producer and just learning about the process. I mean, of course, production, like there's gonna be a bunch of Excel sheets, a bunch of, tracking to do. But at the same time, for me, I feel like I'm just learning something new each and every day. And it makes me excited because I have, a 10-year goal to reach, right? And this definitely does help me reach that goal.
I think for me, it is, like you said, seeing the whole process, because especially when you're in design, you see the inception of an idea, just like a black and white rough sketch. And then if you're there for the whole process, you can see that, like tiny little prop that took like days to fix, used in the actual animation, and then seeing it live on screen at the end is so rewarding. I think a lot of us are still quite new to the industry, so we might not have gotten credits yet, but I think that will be really fun and rewarding to have been part of the whole journey of a project and then seeing it. And I also really just love talking to the team and coworkers that we have. You know, a lot of them have been in the industry so long and they have fun stories on like working on The Lion King or like Dora the Explorer, for example. So it's funny to like meet your childhood heroes and they're just like normal, down to earth people.
Yeah, I agree. And I think working in production, my favorite part is personally seeing everything come together. So I'm involved from the very beginning as the design PA. I'm the person who has to read all of the scripts as they come in and then break it down into a script breakdown, which we'll go over more in part 3 of this series. We'll talk more about that and what all that entails. But what's really cool is that I get to see it when it's still a script, and then all of a sudden I see all the designs start coming in for the new characters and what they look like, and it all starts coming together. And then next thing you know, there's storyboards for it and I can watch an animatic of the episode. So it's really cool seeing it kind of come to fruition from the very beginnings.
For me, it's probably the people. Like they're the ones that make the day better and it go faster. Like it's also really fun to see people light up when they have a creative idea. So the directors and the artists may be talking and just throwing ideas out there, but then you see a little light bulb come out there. It's so rewarding. And then you see the work that comes after that. Like collaborating is amazing. And the fact that we get to support this process is so cool. And I'm really grateful for the experience.
Yeah, and animation PAs, we don't really like get coffee for people. Like people get their own coffee. Like you literally are working on the project directly. You're in the creative decision meeting room. So that is a little bit different from like live action. Because I did see some questions like, oh, what does a PA do? And we'll definitely be talking about that in our 3rd workshop.
Hey, Joshua, tell the sandwich story.
There was like an inside joke on a show that I was on and it got cut. It was like this 12-foot sandwich. And, you know, my team was saying goodbye to one of our production managers and they asked me to order a 12-foot sandwich like within 24 hours. So that was interesting and fun to figure out how to do that, make that happen. But that is rare and leads to a fun story. But yeah, I did order a 12-foot sandwich as like a goodbye party.
That is amazing because I did not know you that like wow
That's
is
possible.
I know I was what like I've seen those huge pizzas and like Scooby-Doo and things or like
Oh yeah,
those
it's just
kind of
called
shows.
Subway. Subway can do anything
Just be like, hey,
apparently.
make a 12-foot pizza. But that's really cool. And we have two last questions. So the next question is it weird to ask at the end of an interview for the interviewer's email so that we can send them a thank you note later?
Oh, I'll chime in that one
Yes.
because I did that recently. No, it is absolutely not weird to ask because actually I feel like that's even more respectful, right? Because you're considering like, oh, are the hiring managers, are they very private, right? Because I've met managers they do not want their email out there at all. So you're being very considerate. It shows that you're mindful, and I think that's like even better to do, like to ask like, oh hey, like should I email them or should I email you the thank you notes and you can forward it to them. So personally, I think that's great that you're thinking about that already, and yes, totally do that.
And for me, I usually ask the coordinator because I don't want to make it weird in the interview because some studios are super strict on giving out their emails, like especially us, like we have to use it just for work. So basically I try to avoid the awkward conversation and just figure it out with the coordinator who is helping me out the entire time. But it depends.
Oh wait,
Ask.
sorry to comment on that. Yes, agreed with Lexi. I thought you meant coordinator. Yes, coordinator/recruiter, not the actual interviewer. Sorry about that, guys.
Because for interviewers, it may feel like you're just trying to check something off your list. Like, don't make it seem like that when you're sending a thank you note. Actually, be grateful, show gratitude. So, yeah.
Okay, great. Yes, definitely. Be mindful, be respectful, and yeah. So the last question is, can we wear heels to interviews?
Yes. Do your thing. Yeah, you can wear heels. Lexi and I have had this conversation before where we were like, we love wearing heels to work and like clacking through the hall.
Makes you feel powerful in the halls.
Not on grass though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, not on grass.
But yeah, if you want to wear heels to an interview, do it.
Yeah, wear whatever makes you feel comfortable. Maybe just not wear like old shoes or anything. Make sure it's presentable. But yeah, whatever makes you comfortable. So that was those were all of our questions. A lot of the other ones were resume related. So feel free to come next week because that workshop is all about resumes. So we'll be answering all the questions you asked there during the workshop. So please come in next Sunday. And yeah, thank you everyone for coming today. And thank you to our wonderful instructors for teaching us and for their time. And yeah, we are excited for the rest of this series and we'll see you next weekend. Bye everyone.